So I know you don't want this to be about you, but endings are important. And you've given your life to this organization. You want to go out on a good note. And it looks like you are. How important is this to you?
So if you think back to last October when this became very formal and really how this succession plan was going to work and where we were going to go, the one thing we thought about this offseason was we had a lot of young players. We really didn't know exactly what we had in terms of how good are they or aren't they. But they're showing that they're pretty good. And so, it's been a really fun team to watch. And, I think about like the energy in that clubhouse or in that dugout on any given night. It's real. It's not fake. These guys really care about playing. They care about winning, and it's showing up. And, from my standpoint, yes, it's my last year. Would I love to see our team go out and win everything? Of course. But I also know that, we are transitioning to new leadership, but that doesn't mean we're not trying to win.
Midway point of the season, but I thought you phrased it nicely in spring training when you said, we got to find out about our young players, but we got to keep the fans engaged. And you're 2 for 2.
Well, I hope so. We're finding ways to win, and I think from just a pure fan standpoint, I've enjoyed watching this team.
Good news and bad news in trying to find out about your young players. The good is Nolan Gorman has been on fire all month. The bad is Jordan Walker has yet to figure it out. How do you look at those two right now?
Well, I think that's part of time. Remind yourself that Jordan Walker's still very young, and you have to be patient. And I think that's the juggling act we're trying to do downstairs. And I think Ollie and his group are doing an amazing job doing it. But there are times where you want to zig and zag. But I think Ollie's kept this script pretty well. And now it's starting to pay off for somebody like a Nolan Gorman.
Trade deadline, July 31st. It's still the most discussed thing like in St. Louis sports. I mean, if you're right there in the playoff mix, how can you be a seller in this baseball crazy town?
Well, I'll just stick with what I've been saying all along. I hope it's a very complicated trading deadline. And what I mean by that is simply that if we're in it, I hope we're looking to add and not subtract. And so we just have to see where we are. But I mean, the way we're playing right now, it's reasonable to be pretty optimistic that we could have an aggressive trading deadline.
So you've said recently that you're getting Chaim more involved, Chaim Bloom, your successor, more involved in the decisions. What's that dynamic going to be like when some big decisions may have to be made around the deadline?
Well, I think in the end, obviously, the DeWitts, Chaim, myself, we'll just kind of look at where we are in the state of the Cardinals. But ultimately, we just have to decide, well, really, they have to decide what are they hoping to achieve for 2026 and beyond. And so, I think that everybody involved, though, understands we're having a pretty exciting season right now. So let's let this season happen.
When you look back on your career, I know this is tough to really narrow down, but what do you think the most important move you made for this franchise was when you look back?
From a player standpoint, obviously navigating the Pujols situation was very stressful and
How would you describe that moment, though, when you got the news and you got right on the plane? Was it horrifying? Was it scary? Were you shocked? What was it when you heard the news Albert's going to the Angels?
I think like my first reaction was I was depressed or sad because here's an iconic player. He's meant so much to the franchise, but you can't really have too long of a pity party for anything in this business because you're always moving. It's always what's next. I mean, you think about that offseason. Tony La Russa steps down. We hire Mike Matheny. Albert Pujols departs. It's kind of crazy because nothing could have ever been as busy as those 3 months.
Let me take you back to your finest moment, 2011 World Series. Take me back there, your emotions about it all.
I've talked about this quite a bit with people, but it's when you win something, that moment in time is fleeting. It was just starting to think about what was next. I think actually 2011 at some point in my life will be something like more meaningful, like maybe in 2031 when they bring the club back to celebrate it, it might feel like, okay, now we can smile.
And on your relationship with Tony, how did it evolve? I bring this up because Kurt Warner said when he was a backup, Mike Martz would always yell at him and say, that's great, Trent Green. But then he became the starter and Martz would embrace him and be real nice to him. I'm wondering, with Tony, at least initially, because he was so tight with Walt and you were so young, how did things evolve?
I think on the actual org chart, I'm listed ahead of the manager. But in all honesty, I was working for Tony, right? Like I basically was working for two people: ownership, Mr. DeWitt, and Tony. So there was a learning curve there. I think ultimately we had mutual respect for each other, and we share a world championship together. So
he probably liked you a lot better after all those great trades at the 2011 trade deadline, right?
It certainly worked out.
Finally, it's a career that began in 1993 throwing batting practice with the Rockies. If I told you then that one day you'd be running one of the greatest franchises in pro sports for almost 2 decades, would you believe me?
No. When I came to the Cardinals, when Walt brought me in, that was when I realized, okay, there might be a career path here. But even when my wife Julie and I moved to Kirkwood, she and I didn't think we'd be here long. Like we just felt like, what's next, and would it be in baseball or not? But here we are, and we're lucky. Both our kids were born in St. Louis. Been with the Cardinals for 30 years, and when I look back, I have nothing but fond memories.